All right, let's pivot it over to Week 11 games of the week. We got a pretty fun slate, man. Some good games on here.
I'm digging it. A little weaker than past few weeks, but
Yeah, but still some marquee matchups. Texans versus the Ravens.
I don't know how that's 1:00. But what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
They had to put Trubisky golf on Sunday night. Just had to.
God Almighty, help us.
Big markets.
J.J. Watt was the highest graded player for the Texans, and he's out. Watson versus Lamar Jackson. I think two of the funner quarterbacks in the league right now playing. Two guys who I want to say played each other in college too.
They did. It was a classic.
Louisville and Clemson, ACC. Two guys that, one guy won the Heisman, the other guy won a national championship. And two guys that had a lot of question marks from certain people coming into the league. I loved Watson. I knew he was going to be great, and so far he hasn't disappointed me. Sure, a couple of concerns with his injuries and whatnot. And then Lamar Jackson again, I apologize for slandering the guy. He's absolutely balled out. Him and Russell Wilson are the leading candidates, according to the FanDuel Sportsbook out in New Jersey, to win NFL MVP. So I am very excited for this one. I think for me, the biggest talking point needs to be the addition of Marcus Peters for this team, because I think this secondary now became legit. Earl Thomas, Humphreys, we've mentioned, Jimmy Smith, Marcus Peters. You have a lot of guys that are ball hawks. They make plays. Marcus Peters does disappear when it comes to tackling sometimes, but he's just a very aggressive corner. Look, he's a corner that he'll have a pick six, and then the next play he'll give up a 70-yard bomb. That's just his nature.
He's a gambler.
He's a gambler, and you know how I feel about gamblers, my kind of people. So I really like this secondary, and then you see how that's going to match up with like the offense for the Texans, who
Will Fuller's not healthy.
Will Fuller's back, Kenny Stills, Kiki, DeAndre Hopkins. Obviously, they also utilize a lot of two tight end sets now as well. It's like Atkins and Fells. And, my boy El Guapo, he's balling out also. So there's just a lot of pieces, a lot of moving parts, man. What's getting you aroused?
Yeah. Besides this being the two most electrifying quarterbacks in the league scoring off against each other, because who else is more electrifying than these two? Like, in terms of just dynamic quarterbacks, it doesn't get much better than this.
Yeah.
And I think it's exciting that both these quarterbacks are going against pass rushers that aren't very good. Like, Baltimore doesn't generate much pressure, and without Watt, I know Merciless still there, he's having a good year, but without Watt, I think Houston's defense takes a huge hit. So I'm expecting a shootout in this one. I know it's crazy because it's in Baltimore, and Baltimore, it's that intimidating environment, but I expect Watson to explode. But then I also expect Lamar to explode because both these defense can get at. I guess what I'm most curious about is just how much Baltimore, obviously they're going to run the ball out, but how many chances Lamar takes with his arm. Because the Titans are going to get involved. Andrews is going to be open down the seam. But there's Hollywood Brown, who only gets like 15, 18 snaps like a game, but he just manages to make his mark. I'm just curious to see how Lamar does as a passer in this game, because I think he's going to find openings using the option and everything. But how much they want to open the playbook when it comes to attacking this Houston secondary, which can get at. That's what I'm most fascinated about.
Deshaun Watson, in games in which he is projected to either be in a high-scoring affair or to be trailing, his numbers are up there with like Pat Mahomes.
Wow.
Carson Wentz's MVP season. Like, he's a guy who thrives in shootouts, right? He obviously has the weapons for it too. D-Hop is starting to get more and more involved. He's hitting the end zone last couple of games that he's played as well. I think for me, the biggest concern that I have is it seems like they're a pass funnel where it either goes to Hollywood or either goes to Mark Andrews. Who's another option for them? Or is the other option just going to be Lamar on the ground?
They love the tight ends with Boyle and Hurst. They'll use that. And I do think
but like consistent, like those guys will catch like one or two passes.
It's not consistent with them, though. That's the thing. They just spread the ball around, but it's just Lamar does what Lamar wants, because good luck trying to bring him down. The way he evades pressure, I've never seen anything like it. It's probably since Prime Vic.
Shit, you saw the stat about his career through 16 games. He has more wins than Pat Mahomes. He has more rushing yards than LT. He has a higher, I believe it's a QBR than Tom Brady. Man, he's really changing. I think both these guys are changing the position, man, because both you can make a case are the best athletes on their teams. Like, let's not forget, Deshaun Watson was Deshaun Watson came into the league and took the league by storm too.
Yeah.
You know?
Hey, Lamar Jackson was supposed to be a wide receiver according to certain people.
Right.
So I think that's the reason why he's one of the best athletes.
Right.
Technically, he should be a receiver. But, yeah, I think just what these two quarterbacks have brought to the league, just so much enjoyment and just kind of changing the landscape where it's like, okay, you don't have to be this tall pocket passer. You could, all right, you might take some punishment. But that's another thing. They change the narrative. Like, especially Lamar, it's like, okay, these guys don't last the league. They're going to get too beat up. All right, Deshaun Watson's taking some lumps, but I think Watson's gotten injured just because the O-line's so bad. I don't think Watson's not really reckless when it comes to scrambling. He doesn't take too many big shots. So I think they're not just changing the narrative when it comes to big pocket passes being the best quarterbacks in the league. They're also changing the narrative that, these quarterbacks don't last. They can't play for 16 games. They're doing it right now.
Well, I think Watson gets big hits when his
Odell!
offensive line, Odell Beckham Jr. scored a touchdown.
Yo, we gotta get hyped for that, man.
I traded Todd Gurley. Yo, Eric, I'm looking at the camera, bitch. I traded Todd Gurley and Jamison Crowder for Odell.
I've been waiting for that since week 2, man. This is an Odell fanboy podcast, man. One of the most. You want to talk about electrifying playmakers? This is it, folks. Sorry, we had to get hyped for that.
Oh boy.
Oh, we talk about Steven Nelson being the weak point of the Steelers D. He just got lit up on the deep post. Odell is back.
That was a dime.
Too bad the Browns are 3-6. Ah, damn it. I really wanted the Browns to be good this year.
All right, before we got sidetracked by Odell hitting the end zone, last thing I want to say about these two guys, Deshaun Watson, you mentioned him not taking big hits. I feel like the only time he takes big hits is when his head coach, who I still think is going to be the sole reason why this team does not hit their ceiling. I think Bill O'Brien holds him back. And remember last year, that Cowboys game where they ran like those sweeps and he was getting pummeled?
Some of the worst red zone play calling I've ever seen in my life.
Awful. And then the offensive line. That's the only time where Deshaun Watson actually gets hit. And
he does hold the ball for a little bit too long, but I feel like he's improved on just avoiding punishment.
Good night. At the 1. He'll be at the 1.
You gotta be kidding
Odell,
me.
yeah.
Why can't this man just have his electrifying moment? Like, Odell's been a possession receiver all year.
Let's move on to the Patriots and the Eagles. I think this is an interesting one.
What are the picks for this game?
Oh.
I'm going Ravens. I say they're the more complete team. I trust their defense to make 1 or 2 plays, while the Texans D, I don't trust at all.
Yeah, I think the deciding factor is going to be the defenses, and I'm with you. I'll go with the Ravens on that.